Hello Class 10. Let us continue with the revision of Chapter 3. We are revising the final and the last part of the lesson. Last day I had described you about the Wahhabi movement, which had begun as a religious reform movement, the religious reform in the principles of Islam, but gradually it had taken the turn into the socio-political and economic movement. Similarly, another movement had begun, but it was solely based upon the religious reform. The name of this movement was Tariqa-e-Muhammadiyya. That means they intended to purify the principles of hadith. That means the teachings of Prophet Muhammad. So it was solely a religious reform movement. It did not have any connection to the social or political or economic conditions of the country. Now the leaders of this Tariqa-e-Muhammadiyya is said to be Inayat Ali and Karim Ali, and some of them say that the Tariqa-e-Muhammadiyya is the other name for the Wahhabi movement. We move on to another Muslim religious reform movement, that is the Farazi movement, which had begun by Haji Shariatullah. It had continued from 1816 to 1906, and this movement had also begun as a religious reform movement by the Muslims, but gradually in course of time it had turned itself into a religious a socio-economic political movement. Now the meaning of the word Farazi is the one who acts upon the path of Islam or mandatory duties as instructed by Islam. So the main characteristics of this movement was to remove the superstitions from the religious doctrines of Islam, the principles of Islam, and give the financial independence to the people. And Haji Shariatullah had the intention to set up an independent state free of paying the taxes to the foreigners. So he had established his free state also. He had this motive, and he had set up an independent state in his area. Basically, the Farazi movement had begun like the Wahhabi movement. It had also begun in the areas of Bangladesh, that East Bengal, but unlike Wahhabi movement had also spread in West Bengal, and that Farazi movement had also spread in the northern and the western part of Bengal. It was not confined in the areas of East Bengal only. And Farazis, they had the support. They supported the indigo farmers in their protest, and it was Dudu Miah or Muhammad Mohsin, son of Haji Shariatullah, who had actually turned the Farazi movement into a socio-political and economic movement. He gave the turn to this movement in a political turn, and he used to say that you should not pay the tax to anyone else, because the land belongs to God. All land belongs to God. So one should not pay tax to some human being, or should not be indebted to a human being, because he is answerable to God only. So the land belongs to the God, and you should not pay any tax to anyone. So that was uh, his preaching, and due to this he turned into an enemy to the British, and he was arrested and put into jail. Now Farazi movement resulted in a failure because they did not have the political knowledge. Then the many Hindu farmers had initially joined the movement, but that Hindu Muslim unity was not maintained, because gradually it had taken the turn itself. It's turned towards the Islam once again. So it was not. It did not remain in as a political movement. It again turned into a religious reform movement. So that is why the Hindu-Muslim unity that was no more maintained. Besides, when Dudu Miah was arrested and put into jail, the Farazis had become leaderless, and so they had no proper guidance. So all these reasons resulted into the failure of the movement, and ultimately when Dudu Miah's son Noah Miah had taken up the leadership of the movement, he gradually again turned the movement into the religious reform movement. So this was the Farazi movement. Now let us move on to one of the most important revolt, farmers revolt of Bengal and India. That was the Indigo Revolt. Indigo Revolt, it was held in the year 1859-60 in the district of Nadia, and it is said that there were two kinds of lands, Elaka and Bay Elaka. The land which was owned by the planters themselves was called the Elaka land, that the land that was belonged to their control. And Bay Elaka were the land which had the ownership of the farmers. Now these farmers, they were paid an advance payment which was known as Dadan, and Dadan was given a very less amount, only rupees 2 per bigha, and they were forced to cultivate indigo. And indigo is the plant which destroys the fertility of the land, and the farmers, where they used to cultivate rice paddy, they were forced to turn their paddy land into indigo planting land. So they were losing their land. They were unwilling to cultivate indigo, and they did not want to take that dadan, but they were forced to take the dadan. And once you had taken that advance payment, you were obliged to plant indigo and do as per the instruction of the farmers and planters. And if you failed, the planters used to torture them in inhuman ways. They used to burn their houses, they used to molest their women, they used to destroy their household properties, they used to capture them, and they used to beat them ruthlessly. It is said that the planters used a kind of leather whip, the hunter, which was known as Shamchand, and it was made in such a cruel manner that when the welts used to fall upon the body of a person, it used to split the skin and bleed the person to death. So the farmers were very much afraid of that whip called Shamchand. And this Indigo Revolt had started by the farmers at Nadia under the leadership of Digambar Bishash and Vishnu Charan Bishash. And he had now they had they forced the British government to pass the to appoint the Indigo Commission in the year 1860, which had reported that the plantation of indigo was very much harmful, and it was not applicable to the land, and tin katia system that the farmer had to plant indigo 3 kathas per bigha. So that was still going on, but most of the areas that system was eliminated except for Champaran in Bihar, which would later on be cease to be existing after Gandhiji had launched his Champaran Satyagraha on the demand of the indigo farmers in the area. He would launch the Champaran Satyagraha, and the British would ultimately put an end to the indigo plantation. And the indigo plantation also ceased to exist because of the invention of the chemical dye. Gradually, when the indigo was prepared in the laboratories, slowly the plantation of indigo also stopped. This indigo plantation, this protest, indigo farmers protest, had gained the momentum by the propaganda of the middle class, because the role of the newspaper, especially the Hindu Patriot, and Harish Chandra Mukherjee, the editor of Hindu Patriot, he had written about this indigo plantation, the wrong method of indigo plantation and the tortures of the indigo planters upon the poor farmers. Everything he had written in his newspaper, and the middle class had reacted very strongly towards the indigo plantation, and they had protested the indigo plantation, protested against the tortures and the wrongdoings of the British indigo planters. So apart from this Hindu Patriot or Sangbad Prabhakar, the Dinabandhu Mitra's Neel Darpan, that play, which had gained a very much popularity amongst the viewers when the play was dramatized for the first time, it gained a lot of popularity, and it brought the plights of the indigo farmers in the forefront. So that was it. The Indigo Revolt of 1859. Two small revolts also are mentioned. One was the revolt of the Garu, the farmers of Garu Hills, or the tribals of Garu Hills, that is known as Paglapanti Revolt, which was initiated by Karim Shah or Karam Shah and Tipu Shah or Tipu Garo. So that held in the Mymensingh district in first time in the Mymensingh district in Bangladesh or East Bengal, and second phase it had occurred in the Garo Hills. And another peasant revolt had also occurred in the year 1870, which was at Pabna, that is also in East Bengal, the present Bangladesh. That there the farmers were organized, and they protested against the misdeeds of the landlords and the British government, and ultimately the Bengal Tenancy Act 1885 was passed, which had declared some kind of remedies for these misdeeds and misgovernance of the cultivation area. So these were the revolts that had occurred in order to protest against the British colonial rule, and I hope that you are able to revise these. The questions are also discussed and the notes have also given. We will further discuss the questions from this lesson in the classes.